On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. One-of-a-kind opinions, big-name guests, the teams you care about every day. It's the Ron Johnson Show, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Ron Johnson Show, and I'm your host, Ron Johnson. And on today's show, we're going to talk about Derek Jeter. I mean, the captain. He's been tweeting about this. He's on Instagram now. He's on Twitter. He's out there in the world, getting everybody excited about Jeter. I knew something was coming because guys don't just jump on social media for no reason. Like, he went back and found a dude's tweet from like 2013 that says Derek Jeter needs to get on Twitter. And then, of course, he goes back to that. So, well played, Tom Brady-esque. And then, of course, what did Derek Jeter do that's just like Tom Brady? We'll talk about that later in the show. We're going to talk a little bit about the Locked On Sports Group has put together a top 50 players that impact the betting lines the most. And then, of course, we have the Daily Three. Some Vikings talk in there. We'll talk all-star game performances and then quarterback carousel in Minnesota. Could there potentially be some new blood in the water for the three quarterbacks entering the season? We'll discuss that in the Daily Three as I bring my producer in, Sam Ekstrom. And before we jump into this conversation, before we talk about Derek Jeter and what he has going on, we have a word from our sponsors.
BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find your favorite sport and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for your sports wagering info. You've got live in-game betting options there, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Well, yeah, Sam, as we jump into this conversation about Derek Jeter, he's going to do a documentary like Tom Brady. So like Tom Brady, he jumped on social media, kind of took the world by storm. You see him doing some daddy-daughter stuff in the car where his wife has to tell him, like, hey, just answer and she'll stop asking you questions. So, it's even good to see even the captain deals with the daily dad stuff that we all deal with. Kids asking us questions that really don't matter and don't make sense at the time, but they just have to get that question off their chest or they're going to die. But Derek Jeter is doing a documentary on ESPN. It's going to be kind of Brady-esque. But the question of the day, Sam, you asked me this. What Minnesota sports figure would I like to see a documentary about? I don't think there is an easier answer. And this is where I kind of went back and forth with this. I thought it was an easy answer, but then I'm going to go back to the Justin Jefferson and Edwards poster board. It's Randy Moss and Kevin Garnett. I think those are the two because, honestly, if you think about Randy Moss, all the colleges he went to that what could have, should have been, Notre Dame, Florida State. Just think of the first round overall pick he could have been at Florida State with Chris Weinke or at Notre Dame with that team, that running game, that just the bravado of playing all the big names, USC, Randy Moss versus USC, like, come on. And then you look at Kevin Garnett, high school kid, 17 years old, about to get millions and millions of dollars, comes to Minnesota, lives with his friends, so on and so forth. And then even further down the road, the whole Minnesota, Glenn Taylor, Kevin Garnett. And my guess is I think it's coming. It might come. Whether it's on a big scale or a smaller scale. Kevin Garnett has to get – because now the team is now owned by a new ownership group. Mark Lowry has now taken over ownership with Alex Rodriguez. Well, now you can talk about Glenn Taylor. Once that final ink is dry and Glenn Taylor, the ghost is kind of in the closet now. Those bones are in the closet. Kevin Garnett may be able to tell what really happened or why he really felt the way he felt about Minnesota. And we know he doesn't hold back. So those are two. I couldn't really pick one between those two. I think those are easy answers for me. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, Moss and KG are definitely two of the most compelling characters. And they've also had variations of shows about them already to talk about certain parts of their life. Like Randy Moss had the 30 for 30 where they talked about his upbringing in Rand, West Virginia. And I think KG did something with Showtime. Like I'm trying to think of a character who isn't as well documented that I want to know more about. That's the challenge for me. And there's so many compelling Vikings characters over the years. Like if you look at a lifelong of accomplishments, Bud Grant. Like the Bud Grant documentary, going back to when he was a player, then a Vikings coach, and now he's just this mythical figure who's like 95 and still hosting garage sales. I mean, that is someone whose life is interesting enough for me to watch a documentary. But Kirby Puckett, another compelling Minnesota sports figure, someone who was gone way too early, someone who had a very complex end to their career. With the early retirement. He had trouble off the field after he retired, but he was a hero on the field. That's kind of an interesting figure who we didn't hear enough from. So I think revisiting him would be pretty compelling too, because that's a figure that before Moss and KG came around, you might say was the number one sports figure in Minnesota, of all time up until about the turn of the century.
Yeah, I mean, so Bud Grant, I get it. I didn't grow up here, so I don't have that love for Bud Grant where it's like I just got to hear his story. The Kirby Puckett, him not being around, I hate when people try to tell other people's stories. That's why I love some of these like first person told stories, because whether they lie or not, at least you're getting their verbiage or their view of their story. The Kirby Puckett one could get weird because some people might try to just be in the story and start telling stories that didn't happen. Like, I remember we were in a hotel and that never happened. So I struggle with some of those when guys are gone and then people try to add on, to their story and it didn't happen. Like they try to become a chapter in somebody's story and literally you were a letter in a page. So another one I thought of, and this is maybe the way I'll take it out as we burn the Minnesota fans, Steph Curry's story. Like he's in Minnesota history. Like he's a Minnesota guy. Like the whole Johnny Flynn, Steph Curry, Ricky Rubio three-way story. Like I'd love for them to tell that story. Like Steph Curry to really say, did you really not want to come to Minnesota? Or were you fine with it? Like, were you okay with it? And that was more so of Minnesota maybe not feeling like you were the guy. Like, who knows what that was? Because, again, he was at Davidson. So let's get that straight. If he went to Duke, I don't think there would have been any questions. If he had went to Michigan or Michigan State, I don't think there would have been any questions. But Davidson, if he went to North Carolina, he was right there. He grew up in that area. He's a Carolina fan. If he went to North Carolina, I don't think we're having this conversation. Even South Carolina, I don't think we're questioning, should Steph Curry, can he be good? It's Davidson. So it's always going to be like, well, because Gonzaga's players, if you're not Jalen Suggs or Chet Holmgren, Gonzaga's players get that same, are they really good? Or is it the competition that they play? And so the Steph Curry, I would love to see that story. Minnesota fans might not like it, but I like to see that. Like the NBA draft year with Steph Curry story but get Rubio in there to tell his side, get Johnny Flynn back. Let's have Johnny Flynn, give his thoughts. Like, do you really feel like you were a bust? Like, are you mad that everybody wishes they never would have drafted you and drafted Steph Curry? Like, let him tell that story. I think that could actually be compelling as well. But that's who I want. I see Sam's going old school. You know what? I know you don't want this one, but I'd love to hear the Kirk Cousins documentary with Mike Zimmer.
Most boring documentary of all time. Okay, if you're going to bring Zimmer into it, fine.
We bring Zimmer in it. Exactly. Like remember the Belichick and Parcells. Remember they did one about when they finally left and how they became friends again. Not to say Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer will ever be friends, but I'd love to get the Zimmer Kirk Cousins story, like the actual truth. Have some players, tell some stuff that's not out there. Because I guarantee there's a lot of stuff that happened in that building. Get former coaches and whether you got to go with the black dot over their face and the voice modulator because they don't want to be named in this.
Norv Turner just be like, with the black box.
Yeah, I remember the time where Mike Zimmer walked right past Kirk Cousins and knocked his books out of his hand. Just let's be able to tell that story. Or, Kirk and Mike were the only two people in the lunchroom eating, and they were both on opposite ends of the room, and we all walked in and like, this is super awkward. Like, Stuff like that. Like I would love for that story to be told because that could be sensational. Like that would capture everybody because you're gonna have Zimmer, who that's a national story, and you're gonna have Kirk, who stays in the national media. So that wouldn't be a bad like two-way. They don't even have to be in the same room to tell. Like Zimmer maybe can finally say like, it's not that I didn't like Kirk. This is why. Whatever it is. But as we jump into this middle segment, Sam, with this Locked On series of the impactful players. There's some names on this list. And when you look at the ones that have come up right now, like the ones that are on this list now, and then going forward, who's going to continue up, you can kind of throw it out there. What's the question, and kind of who's on that list, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, so Locked On Sports is doing this really cool thing in conjunction with our sponsor BetOnline, where they're ranking the top 50 players based on impact on betting lines. So how does that player swing the line if they're not in the game? Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook were in the latest tweet, which ranked 31 through 40. They're counting down 10 each day. Jefferson and Cook each moved the line 1 point. To me, that's surprising. I've always felt like receivers are more impactful than running backs, but they are given the same value on the sports book. So tell me, do you think that in reality, is Justin Jefferson equal value as Dalvin Cook to this team, or is that way off base?
So I don't really understand the 1 point. So are they saying like if Justin Jefferson doesn't play, it's only a 1 point swing in the bet?
That's the way I interpret it, yeah.
And if Dalvin Cook doesn't play, so this is where I go. Like, are they saying like if Dalvin doesn't play, it's 1 point, or if Justin Jefferson doesn't play, it's 1 point, and if they both don't play, is it 2 points, or is there new math to that? Because 1 + 1 = 2, but that doesn't seem like that would be the right answer there. So I'm guessing, no, there has to be more to it. Same value to their team. This is okay. So I get the BetOnline thing. I get everybody's trying to figure stuff out. This is just hypothetical. I completely disagree with that number. I think if you're missing a Justin Jefferson, that's a bigger swing. I think if you're missing a Dalvin Cook. So value combined, yes, I do agree. I do agree that Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson hold the same value. And this is why, though. And this is, I would say, in Zimmer's offense or team, no, they did not hold the same value. Within Zimmer's scheme, I felt like Dalvin Cook might have been a little bit more impactful at times compared to just based off the way they wanted to play, because they wanted to run the ball. They wanted, like you said, on 2nd and long, they were going to run the ball. Now, we did see Dalvin out and Alexander Mattison come in, and the Vikings stay with the Seahawks. We know Mattison can get you 100 yards. We have not experienced a no Justin Jefferson game yet, so we don't know what the receiving core looks like. But in the Mike Zimmer, I'd say Dalvin. In the Kevin O'Connell, I'm going to say Justin. And this is why. If you think about the receiving core without Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne and Adam Thielen, do they give you the same type of explosion and scariness without a Justin Jefferson on the field? The answer is no. And that's where I think Justin Jefferson with this offense deserves more. I think it's a bigger, like it has to be like a 2 or 3 point swing, in my opinion, if Justin Jefferson's out in this offense. Dalvin Cook, I don't see it as much, because I think, if you look at the Rams running backs, and again, I'm only going off what the Rams did. You look at the Rams running backs, it was kind of a running back by committee, and all the guys were kind of serviceable. They did what they had to do. But at the end of the day, first and 10, they're throwing something. 2nd and 10, they're probably throwing something again to get to a third manageable. If it's 3rd and short, then they might run the ball. If it's 3rd and mid, they have to throw. 3rd and long, of course, they have to throw, or they run a draw and live to punt. But that was Sean McVay. This is Kevin O'Connell. Even though he learned from him, different. So I'd say this year, I don't agree with that based off this offense. I would say Justin Jefferson is going to move that needle as far as the points being in and out versus Dalvin Cook. But that's where I'm going to go with it. I'm just looking at it from an offense standpoint. And we have no clue. Like, literally, we're all speculating what this offense could look like. We really don't know. Like, Kevin O'Connell might come out and just run a pro-style offense with 3 receivers, a tight end and a running back, and then 2 running backs and 3 receivers, and then a tight end, 2 wides, and 2 running. I mean, we really don't know. We keep just saying, it's going to be 1 back, because the Rams didn't really use a fullback, but he likes C.J. Ham. And the one thing a lot of coaches make the mistake is they come in and they don't use the vital pieces of the offense. So that's where I'm going to go. Justin Jefferson gets the edge in that he should have a little bit more. I do agree their value are both high, but I think Justin gets the edge a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because Dalvin Cook with Mike Zimmer would touch the ball 25 times a game. Justin Jefferson would touch it between 5 and 10, 10 max. Right. But at the same time, the drop-off from Jefferson to somebody else, and remember, we've never seen what that looks like. I mean, since the time Jefferson started, he's played every game, so we've never really seen them without him. But the drop-off from Jefferson to the next guy, I think, is greater than Cook to the next running back, because running back production is so based on the blocking and the situation. And I think that going forward, I think you're right. I think we are going to see a lot more running back by committee. But here's the real tell, Ron. The tell base, and I know that betting lines don't always mirror reality, but look at Marcus Mariota at number 32. He has a 1.5 point swing. That's Marcus Mariota. That is a bottom of the league starting quarterback who has a greater impact on the betting line than Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook. That's crazy to me. And that's because there's so little quality quarterback play. If you lose your starter and you're going to a backup quarterback, there is such a drop-off, whereas there's more richness in the skill players. So you can survive with backup receivers and backup running backs more easily than you can with quarterbacks. So I'm interested to follow this list and see, okay, well, if that's what Marcus Mariota's impact is, what is Kirk Cousins' impact? What is Aaron Rodgers' impact? Are we getting up into 5, 6, 7 points? I think we probably will by the time we get down to the top 10.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. Like the quarterbacks, Mariota's getting you 1.5. I mean, Aaron Rodgers – I mean, we saw Jordan Love. So Aaron Rodgers is probably going to be – he's going to bring a pretty penny. I think every quarterback will, but the fact that we're at 31 and you're getting Devontae Adams in that, it has to be every quarterback moving forward. Like I can't see – there's a couple that you're like, it doesn't matter. But it has to be at least 22 to 23 quarterbacks coming up with if they're out, what happens. I think the Vikings, they might not say Kirk Cousins is the best quarterback, but I feel like the Vikings with the backup situation, Kirk might be the biggest number. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see the next 30 and what those look like. But yeah, now it's time for the part of the show that I love. It's the Daily 3. That's 3 questions. 3 minutes each. Take it away, Sam.
Thanks, Ron. But first, let me tell you about BlueNile.com, the original online jeweler since 1999. They've helped millions of couples create their perfect engagement ring. They're committed to ensuring the highest ethical standards are observed when sourcing diamonds and jewelry. Whether you're customizing an engagement ring or designing diamond stud earrings, online jeweler Blue Nile will allow you to create a bigger, more brilliant piece than you can imagine at a price you won't find at a traditional jeweler. Expert advice 24/7, legendary service with 30-day returns when you commit to a piece. So does Blue Nile. Guaranteed service and repair for life. Make your moments sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more, and this podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free. Find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Last year, the Vikings brought in Bashaud Breeland, Mackenzie Alexander, trying to solidify the cornerback position. And I think we all agreed that these were, at minimum, solid signings, maybe even good signings. Turns out those two players ended up toward the bottom of the league in most of the metrics. Did not go well, honestly. Despite we like Mackenzie, Bashaud seemed like he had something left in the tank. Didn't work out. So are there any free agents this year, Ron, that concern you in the same way? Someone who the Vikings brought in who people might be excited about, but you are worried about?
You know what? The one I'm going to go with, and I don't think it'll be glaring. I don't think we'll notice it much. So I guess 2, I'd say. Chandon Sullivan. I think that's one. The fact that, when they're doing these DB rankings across the NFL, a lot of people aren't throwing him in the starting 5. So that's a little bit concerning. Like what don't they think? Or is it one of those things where the Vikings and the Packers just aren't on the same level? I think that happens sometimes where when you throw a guy out there and he's with one team, you love him up because we know they love the Packers defense, and then you throw him with the Vikings, and after Mike Zimmer's defense, like Ben Lieber said, has been at the bottom the last 2 years, maybe they're just downplaying, him being in this group with all these older guys, and then these young, like it's literally just old or young. There's no like middle ground of just solid vet. It's an old guy and then there's young guys, and they just came together and made a DB sandwich with Chandon Sullivan. So that's a concerning one because nickel in today's NFL, when you're playing the Packers, looks like the Bears are going to try to do this now. And then you look at the teams they're playing like the Cardinals, like the Eagles, like the Saints. That third receiver is dangerous, and so they play a lot of teams this year that throw the ball. Even the Colts, they have a new quarterback. So I think that nickel spot is going to be a little bit concerning whether that becomes a Cam Bynum, because, again, he played cornerback in college. He was drafted to the organization. All these coaches are new. But that one for me, and then, of course, Phillips. And the only reason Harrison Phillips is just because coming into that spot, that was the issues last year was stopping the run. So what does that look like? Can he be a true run stopper? Is he going to be a true piece of this 3-4 defense? But those two would just be concerns. Harrison Phillips, not so much as Chandon Sullivan, just because of the fact of it hasn't been a great, oh my God, that was a great signing for the Vikings.
Yeah, Sullivan being a cornerback, it can be a little concerning because any cornerback learning a new system could be exposed. Because when you're a cornerback, you are on such an island. If you find yourself in a one-on-one situation and if you don't know where to be, then that's a problem. So Sullivan is probably susceptible to that, even though I think he's had a strong, start to his career in Green Bay. And I would worry about Jesse Davis too. I mean, if Jesse Davis is your right guard starter, I haven't seen anything statistically in his career that suggests he has a lot of high ceiling, so I would worry about that. Big night for the Twins in the All-Star game. Byron Buxton hits the go-ahead home run that eventually propels the American League to a win, a 3-2 win, and Luis Arraez works a single off a flame-throwing right-hander who I think was dealing 103 miles an hour, and he got a single off his curveball. So people are pretty pumped about the Twins. Buxton goes deep. Arraez does what he does. Ron, what do you make of the Twins' All-Star game performances?
I think it was solid. The fact that people are even arguing this MVP conversation that if Buxton was a Yankee, he'd be the MVP. But, it's stats. They're going off of runs batted in. That was one big one. Stanton got 2. Buxton got 1. So it is what it is. Buxton did do like you said, the go-ahead home run was his, but without the 2-run shot. It's apples to oranges in that instance. It's just both hit home runs, both mattered. One just had one guy on, and the other one's a solo. So I think it was a great performance by both. It was, again, health. I'm just glad they came back healthy. That was my take from it. Just come back healthy. Don't do anything to overextend yourself. That's being in the MVP race even, that gets a little scary. Because when you're in that MVP race and early on you're like, okay, here's where we are. We're up 3-2. If I make this play, and this play, maybe I'm an MVP. That's where it can get a little scary, where they might try too hard or jump off the wall, run up the wall like Bo Jackson or something. Just something ridiculous to get hurt. But yeah, no, nothing happened. Everybody's healthy. I think the Twins players play well on the big stage. I'm loving the storylines as well from some of these teams that didn't fly their players out there because of whatever's going on within the organization and money. Like, they offered them a commercial flight. It's like, dude, they gave you a free flight though. Like, just because they didn't charter the owner's jet for you, like that's news now. But no, they did well. I think other than that, another guy out there, like I said, was Stanton. He was the MVP. If Buxton is a Yankee, is that true? I don't know. I don't think so. If Buxton hits a 2-run shot to go up and Stanton hit the 1-run shot to bring a 1 back, then yeah, then you can say, okay, Buxton is the MVP. I don't think they give it to Stanton, like flip that. If Buxton had the 2-run shot and Stanton had the solo, do they still give it to Stanton because he was the go-ahead? I don't think so, but saying it out loud, maybe, because he's a Yankee. Like, I don't know, but I don't think so. I think they would have given it to Buxton. But saying it out loud, I was like, damn, maybe. Maybe if it was Stanton, they would have done that. Like, he hit the home run to win the game, and we're going to, he put us ahead. Maybe. I don't know. They love the Yankees. They don't know the Twins as much. but that's just my take.
Yeah, Yankee bias. I think Matt behind the scenes might have the tweet of how many Twins have actually homered in the All-Star game, and it's a pretty short list. He joins Killebrew, Puckett, and Dozier. That's pretty good company, as Doe Park points out in the tweet. That's pretty cool for Buxton. AL wins their 9th consecutive All-Star game. The Vikings made a roster move yesterday. Nate Stanley, the 4th-string quarterback, was waived, which opens up a roster spot, Ron. So my question for you is there another quarterback that they'll bring in to be the 4th string? I don't know. Seems a little unlikely to me. I don't know why you would have that kind of urgency. Does that mean that there's a roster spot open for one Ndamukong Suh, Kyle Rudolph? What do you make of this?
I do make of that. I think there is going to be a signing. I do feel like Kyle Rudolph said he has like another week or two before his summer's over. So I feel like guys like him and Suh, they're just waiting for training camp to kind of get right up to the whiskers, like July 30th. So they have time. Like, why get back? If I'm working out on my own, I know what kind of shape I need to be in to make somebody's training camp. I think there is room. I know, like, even Anthony Barr, who knows? Like, there's a lot of guys out there on the street still that, I don't think they're going to be stubborn where if a team's like, hey, man, we only have $2 million. Do you want to come be a part of a championship team? I don't see a guy saying no. You already look at Suh, though. Like, that would be a good one as far as the fact of you now have a top 10 rated passer or pass rusher on Madden in Smith, and you still have Danielle Hunter, who in my opinion, if he was healthy, he'd be in that top 10. So you have 2 top 10 Madden rated pass rushers on this team. You add in Ndamukong Suh, you got Harrison Phillips. Like, yeah, that could be a scary defense where you can go a hybrid 3-4 and a 4-3 because now you have those bodies and those pieces to move. Because if Suh is a true 3 technique, but not as quick as he used to be, but can still eat up space. Hey, that adds that like with the meet me at the quarterback 2.0, as Darius Smith calls it. Suh adds another level of like, hey, this defense is got some swagger back. Like that's a guy that offensive linemen don't want to mess with. I know he's not the same guy anymore. He's doing American meat commercials now, but hey, he's still a scary beast and can still be a bully when he wants to be. But yeah, no, I don't think there's another quarterback per se, because you can get a guy off the street at any time to come just throw and be your 4th quarterback. I truly believe with 3, you want to get as much, like Kevin O'Connell wants to give as much work as possible to Kellen Moore. Like, I think he wants to really see what he has in this guy. They drafted you. Or we, because it is a we now, but let's be real. They drafted you. What did they see in you? And the scouts are still here, so what did you guys see in him? And then I think that's going to be the goal. Like, what can this guy be a true backup, or do we need to move on and draft a new quarterback next year?
Yeah, I'm disappointed, Ron. I thought you were going to tell me that Kyle Sloter was going to fill that open roster spot. I thought that was going to be the 90th man on the roster. No, it's probably going to be probably a veteran. And I like that they might only take 3 quarterbacks into camp, because I always feel like 4 is too many and the 4th guy doesn't really do anything. So, yeah, just keep it to the 3 you've got.
You got 4. Kevin O'Connell played quarterback. So when it comes to some of these drills and little things needed, like throwing the ball to the running backs out the backfield and some of that other little stuff, that 4th, because they usually have 2 quarterbacks on each side throwing the receivers, and then 2 quarterbacks on each side throwing to the running backs and tight ends. I'm pretty sure we're going to see Kevin O'Connell out there dusting off the cleats. Coaches that can throw like Harbaugh, they live for that time. Yeah, they live for that time to be able to show the arm off in practice, throw a deep ball maybe to a receiver, showing the guys I still got it. Like, oh yeah, and he's not old, so I can throw some warm-up passes. So I know he can do it because he was an NFL quarterback and he was a star college quarterback. So Kevin O'Connell, I think that's the 4th quarterback in these training camp warm-ups and walkthroughs and all. Like, he's going to be out there showing these guys, like, here's what the play action should look like. I mean, and he wants to be a guy of Minnesota. He wants to be a man of the town. He's already been going to games. So why wouldn't he get out there and do a little play action deep ball to get the crowd, cheering for him, and he can get in the paper and get on Sports Center and KARE 11 and, and be on TV. I mean, come on now. Kevin O'Connell, I think he cut Stanley because he wants the time. Like, we'll see 5 out there. We'll see him in a jersey even probably or something. But that'll do it for the Ron Johnson Show today. That's Sam Ekstrom. This is Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast Network. Again, you can search us on wherever you get your podcasts, anywhere, anytime. Download, take a subscribe. Let us know what you thought about today. Who would you like to see in a documentary of a Minnesota sports figurehead that's been in this town? Also, do you think Byron Buxton got screwed? And is Dalvin Cook more valuable than Justin Jefferson? Let us know. Comment, like, share, retweet. Have a great day.